Hello, I'm Steve. A little about myself. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with 20 years of service. I began my career in the jail, worked the road, and became an investigator. During my career, my training consisted of everything from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene technician. I've investigated crimes from thefts to homicides. After retiring and becoming aware of true crime and web sleuths, I started my channel for web sleuths to better understand the perspectives of law enforcement. Not only do we cover true crime, I go out into the field and assist families who have lost loved ones to homicide and their cases are considered cold. Join me as we look and bring attention to these critical cases.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad you're able to join us tonight. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We'll have a presentation, and during that presentation, if you have any questions, absolutely throw them into chat. And while you're in chat, always be mindful to be respectful of families, mods, and each other. We don't use full names of individuals other than what's included in possibly search warrants or probable cause affidavits. And those, if law enforcement has focused upon them, then of course it's in the public record and it's not that big of a deal. But for some of the others that are just possibly court and no charges have been filed, we try to keep those out of it. But before we get into it, let's introduce what we're going to be talking about tonight. Of course, is going to be, I've been doing a test for almost the last month. It's day 26. Having to end the test a little bit earlier for the fact that I was going to let it run for 30 days, but I'll be on the road next week. And so that kind of throws a wrench into the of what's going on. So I decided to go ahead and end the testing as far as the findings for this bullet and the timeline. And before we get into it, though, if you have any information regarding this case, absolutely make sure that law enforcement, prosecution, defense has that for as a fact that Richard Allen, who has been charged with these homicides, and that as the courts proceed and we tried to find justice for Libby and Abby, everyone needs that information so that justice can be served. And that if Richard Allen is the one that's responsible, then he is held accountable. If there's evidence out there that says he's not responsible, then we need to find out who is. As always, he's innocent until proven guilty. But, you know, right now, law enforcement says that they have the probable cause and court systems moving forward. But anyway, the reason that I've run this test and have done it for, like I said, almost a month now, is that the discussions, the debate about how long that bullet was at the crime scene is critical. It's critical on so many levels, from the point that it's one item that experts have said that links the crime scene to the Richard Allen's home, to a gun that was recovered during a search warrant at his residence. And so we have a bullet that the experts have put in and filed a report saying that a unspent round was cycled through that gun that belongs to Richard Allen. And the importance of that means during the interviews that Richard Allen says that he's never been on that property before. Will that change? Possibly. Who knows what will come up in the coming days. Also, that Richard Allen never loaned that weapon to anyone that may have possibly have gone to that property. And this is probably one of the, without DNA, fingerprints, or some type of confession, which we have with that, but or testimony from others that said that, yes, they witnessed the crime or know of the crime, and that this is why he's involved. We don't have any knowledge of that. Does law enforcement have some of that? Possibly. Who knows what we have right now. But it's absolutely critical that we have a timeline and an understanding of that unspent round at the scene. For the fact that it's going to be argued that it's been there for years, possibly. It could be there, it was there for weeks, or was it there just within a few hours and was actually left by the offender of this crime at the scene between the two victims. And that's the reason is that I did this testing. And also that we have to look at it from the standpoint that there's rumors that it wasn't recovered by the CSI, that it was recovered by a third person, which brings in a whole new avenue for the defense that, well, this person could have found this bullet anywhere, and maybe some shape, form, or fashion trying to frame a patsy or frame Richard Allen as the offender. And that's is critical that we look at it and understand. And it's something that, as I was conducting these tests, that as I was recovering these shell casings, I realized that, oh, yes, we have the soil samples that came up with the casings that if the bullet was in fact halfway buried, the soil sample and the soil, if it was handled carefully, would have been attached to the shell casing and would become part of the evidence. And so they could reverse engineer, go in there, analyze the soil, make sure it's something that's from that crime scene. And so there's a lot of importance to this shell. And it's a lot of importance about the timeline for the fact that if we can just determine how long that bullet was at the scene, and because this was a question that was raised to me a few weeks ago by Criminality. If y'all don't know about her YouTube channel, check her out. She was on Sleuth and Chat, and she posed a question to me of, can you tell how long a bullet has been left outside in the environment? And I've been around and I've policed up firing ranges for a lot of years. And during my career, we pick up our brass. We'd pick up some new brass and old brass, and you could tell the difference due to that the brass would oxidize. But can you actually tell due to a short time period, 1 day, 2 days, 10 days, or even up to 26 days? Is there a chart that you could possibly create through control testing that would indicate exactly how long that round has been there? And if that is true, which my findings lean that way, and whereas has law enforcement or their charts out there, has this bullet been submitted for this type of testing for the controls to establish a well-defined calendar of the progression of charting the what happens on a day-by-day chart of environmental exposure. And so it's very important that we look at that. And because if we can, and if that bullet was left within, theoretically within that 1 day time frame, then of course, and that bullet is able to be admitted into court, that can be huge. And it is huge, regardless. It's a huge bit of information that we see that the defense, rightly so, is trying to suppress and they would try to get the expert's testimony also either suppressed or thrown out as junk science, which the courts have recognized that it is something that an expert can offer an opinion on. And I'm sure the defense will have experts that offer their opinions also. But it's still critical information that we go out and look at and analyze. All righty. Before I get too far, let's go into chat, see what's going on. Gail's here. Good to see you. Sonia Torres. Sonia says it's her first time here. Welcome. I hope you enjoy it. Paula Lee. Let's see here. If you got any questions, throw them in there. Joe Moser, good to see you. Are you driving a taxi tonight? Family taxi? Hello, Bama Sin. Hello, Di, Nana, Eileen. Mrs. Steve is in Florida tonight, and I will be going down there next week. And then, of course, I've got to travel. Probably the next 25 days, I'll be on the road somewhere between 12 and 20 days. So I'm going to be pretty busy for the rest of this month on the road, and we'll have some information, and I'll try to do as many lives as I can from the road while I'm out there. And I appreciate all y'all's support and bearing with us as we go out and work these cold cases for these families. Thank y'all. And her finger's not working. Magnet fishing. I've heard a lot about magnet fishing. Hello, good Copper Horse. Good to see you. We got Paula Lee is a new member. Paula, if you're new to the channel, you get a blue light for your support, and we appreciate it because that helps us on our travels and for the code case and for the families. We thank you. CJK, and also as a member on Sundays, tomorrow, I will be having tomorrow afternoon around 7. All our members have a meeting with me that I post a show and where I answer all your questions without, you know, well, it depends on YouTube if they open it up to the public or not. But generally, 99% of the time, it is just the members and I answer all the questions. We discuss anything and everything. And as you'll see, if you participate, it's a far less formal affair and structured than what you see here when I have a presentation. CJK. CJK has been a member for 14 months. Thank you. Appreciate that. It means a lot to us. That's all right. That's all right. Follow it. Oh, man. Let's see what else. Make sure I'm trying to get caught up a little bit. Junior Johnson's in the house. Miss Persevere. Hello. Jinx. Good to see you. Delphi Dummies. What a name. Southern Gal True Crime. Great channel there. Who just, I want to thank everyone for assisting Southern Gal breaking her 500 and being able to become, as far as subs, becoming monetized. Absolutely go over and check her channel out. Sleuthy Goosey, good to see you. Olivia 2, excellent. True Crime Time, excellent to see you. Unearthed Secrets, hello. Southern Gal True Crime, member for 12 months. Can't believe I've been here a year already. I know it. It's absolutely amazing. We thank everyone. Let's see here. Yes, all the of the sketches give me a headache. The old guy, bridge guy, new young guy, all of it gives me a headache, and it's absolutely amazing. But we'll see where it goes during the court case. There's Unearthed Secrets again. Brenda, good to see you. Just like I said, don't want to get too far behind on questions in case any of them pop up. You know who isn't here is Nightbot. That's interesting. They were working on Nightbot earlier. Robin B. Yes, I hope everybody had a good day today. Yes, and you are absolutely correct. Archaeologists here, that would require same time of year, same moisture, same acidity of soil, etc. And that's what I'm saying. Under controlled testing, they have access to the crime scene. They have access to that creek bed, that area. They have access to gathering that soil, and the controls can be done there. With what I have here in Georgia, it's just that I ran some tests that while mine will not parallel, they may be close, but they will not be exact representation of what those soils and those leaves and trees. There could be a huge difference in the testing results or not, but I do believe that this is something that could be established under scientific controlled conditions. Good point. Appreciate that. Good discourse. Odd, hello. Black Swan. Leanne. Here's Nightbot. Nightbot did show up. Oh, man. Oh, Farmer, Jennifer. You spotted the old phone back there? I have a lot of phones. Yes, I have a lot of phones, but no, that one's not working. It would if I plugged it in. Hello, Black Swan. I'm glad um, this is your first live too. Watched a few of my videos so far. Thank you. Even if that bullet, this is from DP, was found by a third party and a few days after the original crime scene was shut down, you would still need to ask why it matched Richard Allen's gun 5.5 years later. Exactly. This is before Richard Allen may have not stepped forward and would have been known as a suspect. And either through the soil testing, establishing, regardless of when law enforcement gained custody, and the timeline and the evidence sheet starts showing its course through the control of law enforcement through that evidence sheet, that from that point on, all of this is something that is critical. And regardless of who found it, hopefully it was CSI. There's, like I said, it doesn't, for me and what my testing has very little to do with that other than the exposure. And that's what we were looking at for this. All right. So with that being said, let's get into some of this. Of course, I tested 4 different types of shell casings. I tested, as you see on this, from left to right, a nickel brass casing, a brass, aluminum, and a steel casing. They're all different calibers other than the first 2 on the left, from left to right, are both 40 caliber. One of them's nickel brass, one of them straight brass. I didn't have all of different casings for the same caliber, but each of the makeups of each of these types of metals would react the same regardless of caliber. And so I just chose what I had in-house to minimize my costs as I do these tests. And so that's the reason I used each of these. And then, of course, I had some that I just throwed into the leaf debris. And then I had some that I scratched back the leaves, exposed soil, stepped on them, semi-burying them into that soil. Doesn't mean that that is the way the unspent round was found, because they said it was buried. Could have been buried by a muddy boot that stepped on it that just happened to pull away from the boot and it was in contact with other soil. Possible. We don't know. Law enforcement would know, whoever found the bullet would know, and that will come out in court in testimony. If that bullet is admitted, it will be covered extensively of how law enforcement gained control of it, who found it, at what time, and what measures were taken to establish that that round is from the crime scene. And it will, if it can't be established it's from the crime scene, then of course the defense will have a great argument, and and then we'll have to see what happens. All right. Let's see here. And of course, my Georgia test site where I conducted it with the oaks and the pine is a little bit, probably a little bit different than what the original Delphi crime scene is. And although the barren areas are very similar, that as I was moving leaves, that from the crime scene images that I've seen, that with the movement of leaves and what I had created at my crime scene here in Georgia is very, very similar, as you can see between the 2 pictures. And the image to the left is 3 images that you will see throughout this presentation. Those are from my previous shows. My first 2 shows from when I had a brand new casing that had not been exposed to the elements. Then I exposed it for 24 hours, and then I exposed for 10 days. And now the one to the right, the one that's under the 26 days, is what the nickel brass looks like. Now, nickel brass weathers extremely well outside. And so can you age microscopically with equipment higher than what I have? It's possible, but I don't have that technologies or that type of equipment. The equipment I have limited abilities to go in there forensically and check and see if there are microscopic differences that you could put on a time chart. But just in my magnification looking at it, there's not anything that would tell me that, oh, this has been here 1 day, 10 days, or 26 days. That's not the case with brass. You have a new brass that's, like I said, in the 3 images to the left, you have top left 1 day. The one that's smaller there is you got brand new 1 day, and then down the bottom with the ones that have that chemical bluing reaction is a 10-day, and that's just in the leaf debris. It was a casing I just dropped into the leaves. It wasn't buried. It was just covered with leaf, and wherever the leaves touched, they had a chemical reaction with that brass. And then you see the one at 26 days. So even between new brass, 1 day brass that had no reaction, to the 10 days, to the 26 days, you can see that there's a steady increase with brass. And so you could build some type of chart. And like I said, the control test that would be conducted in the actual crime scene would have to be done there to get it where it's scientifically something that they would probably be able to get into court or not. I don't know. There's a lot of experts that are allowed into court when they have the knowledge and the expertise to base their opinions upon. And then we have aluminum. Aluminum is another casing that showed very little, if any, reaction. It's sort of like the nickel that you can't tell from a new casing to a 1 day casing. At 10 days, there seemed to be a little bit of dulling, and even at 26 days, I don't know if that was just the lighting that I exposed it to, and then the camera. It was a little bit cloudier today, but under control testing, they would be able to establish that. But with the equipment I have, no, I really couldn't tell, just like with the nickel, that the aluminum has any way to establish any type of timeline. As far as the steel casing, you have where it's new and no rust, to 1 day, just a tad of rust, and then 10 days, and then 26 days. It does have a progression, and how rusty it would be. I'm sure you could build a well-established, clearly timeline of how the rust increased on a day by day, and probably establish pretty good timeline how long that casing had been at the scene. And this is one that was buried, that's steel. I had some of the casings, of course, were just laying in the leaf debris. And then these final 4 cases are where they're buried, and they're in contact with the soil itself. The new brass, as far as steel, not brass, but new steel casing, to 1 day, to 10 days, to 26 days. Yeah, there's a spreading of rust. And could it be established? I believe so. Now, once again, with a nickel, no. But as you can see with this casing, I cleaned this casing off this time, because you can see that from the new brass, nickel brass, when I put out there, it's clean. But when you recover it from the ground, semi-buried, it's contaminated. It has soil that has adhered to the surface of the nickel, to the brass, to the steel, inside the rim. It'll collect solid. So you have that soil that you could establish that, yes, this bullet came from that environment. It came from the property of Ron Logan. And so even the secondary evidence that you would collect could establish that, yes, this bullet doesn't come from some other location. It actually came from that property, which is huge. And but on the 26 days, I wiped it down, cleaned it up, but you can still see around the rim itself, there's some soil debris in there. When I removed it from the soil, it was just as dirty as the one that you see here on the left. And then on the buried one, we have the new brass. Then we have 1 day that just has a little bit of soil on it. And we have the 10 day that clearly shows on brass that when it's buried, there is, even on the 10-day, there's a significant reaction. 26 days, even more so. And once again, this continued timeline, I think, could establish exactly how long that round had been there, minimized of 12 hours, 1 day, 48 hours. But at some time during that first 10 days, there's going to be a reaction that started to be able to be noted and recognized. And that's huge. And the aluminum one, of course, not much. But for the nickel and the aluminum, while the casings don't indicate anything, the bullet jacket that is loaded and the bullet of the unspent round, without that bullet being with that unspent round, there's a possibility that we may not have been able to even theorize that you could come up with a timeline, but we can, for the fact that we have that the copper jacket of these bullets are able to have some type of reaction with the soil, leaves, whatever chemicals are at the location at my test site. And I'm sure it would with some variables be equal or near in Indiana within Delphi, that they would also have some type of chemical reaction from the jacket with the copper. All right. Got that covered. Let's get back into the questions here. Big fish, small pond. Good to see you. Gail Hurd. May angels guard you on the road. Thank you. $20. Appreciate it. Thank you. Means a lot to us. Let's see here. If you got any questions about this, absolutely. Junior Johnson. I never want to see a blue light behind me again. Oh, man. Love to hunt. Good to see you. That's very kind of you, Delphi Dummies. Love your stuff, Steve. Thank you. Witchcraft. Frederica. Good to see you. Yes, Lone Pony. There is all the wildfires and everything that's in Texas. Yes, prayers, good thoughts to the families, ranchers, livestock, and the Texas Panhandle. Millions plus acres and still burning. Thank you for that thought. Gail has gifted 5 True Crime Web memberships. Thank you. Appreciate that. Lee and Susan Trainer has been a member for 15 months. Hello, Mr. Steve. We are glad to see you tell Mrs. Steve that we said hello, and be safe traveling and looking forward to more videos. Thank you. She'll be putting out while I'm on the road and some shorts next week. And also tomorrow we'll have our members only show. And then Wednesday, I will be on the Drunk Turkey show, and Thursday night, we'll have some type of show while I'm on the road. I gifted another 5 True Crime Web memberships. Thank you. Appreciate that. NR says, I thought when RA said that he hadn't lent the gun out, that he was more than likely not guilty. Maybe I've got to fix my thinker. Yes, it will. That if the expert's testimony is allowed, and if that jury sees that, and of course, the defense will bring in their expert also, and you're going to have both sides of why that bullet characteristics are Richard Allen's, and then you'll have the other side that says why the characteristics are not Richard Allen's gun. And what can happen, sometimes juries will listen to those experts, and when it's 50-50, they just disregard. And will that happen on this? I don't know, but that is a possibility. And Unearthed Secrets, congrats. She says, I'm still below 250. Well, if y'all don't know who Unearthed Secrets is, she is a valuable part of our team. She's a scientist that we could not do the testing and some of the things that we do on the road that with the Amber Crumb case that she supplied her time, her equipment, and traveled to Texas to conduct some testing for me and for the foundation that we couldn't have done without her. So give her as much thumbs up and go and join and get her channel above 500 also. Josh the Posh, good to see you. Honey Hill. Junior Johnson, getting on the night bot. Yes. Unearthed Secrets has been having some meetings for the foundation, which our foundation is the nonprofit part of our channel. It's a tax 501c3. And so if you wish to support that way, go to our truecrimeweb.com. And there's a link there that if you wish to have the nonprofit or the tax exemptions. Miranda says, true crime, do you think the branches were put in a pattern or just randomly spread at the crime scene? As I always qualify, I don't know if any of the images that I have are while they appear to be what everyone is referring to and what the court has addressed as being that they are real and correct, and they match what is described within the Frank's motion, that if the images I have with the branches, if they are accurate, then yes, they were placed. They did not fall randomly. They're not scattered randomly around the scene. They were placed in a specific pattern on the victims. In my opinion, take it for what it's worth. Bill Hurd gifted 1 True Crime Web membership. Thank you. Thank you, Robin B. Hello, Anna Lizette's in the house. There were a lot of oak leaves in the pictures of the leaf litter in Delphi. Yes, I've been there. I don't know what all types of trees are out there, but it most certainly appears that even I'm sure there's some people out there that can look at those leaves and tell you exactly what kind of tree they're from. I can't, but there does appear to be a mixture of oak and other types of leaves there at the scene. And so, yes. Let's see here. Joanne Jackson, good to see you. Well said, Sonia. To this is such a strange case. The circumstances of Richard Allen are weird. And we've seen everything. And could they have, sadly, we have seen the court systems and we've seen everything that you can imagine, but it's also a lesson to all of us that our courts have been around for a long time and they're based upon the Constitution, and there's checks and balances that no matter what occurs for hearings or judges or representation, that we see that there's a set of checks and balances, whether you agree they are continuing to work or not. At the end of the day, that regardless of what the juries find out and ever how it goes with whatever judges, if the appeal process, if there are appeals, will guarantee that the field is level, and justice will be found one way or the other. True crime and other stuff. Is there cat hair as evidence, or is that just a rumor? We don't. I know that in at least one of the search warrants, I believe, or two of them, I think, in both the Klein search warrant and in the probable cause affidavit by the FBI, they mentioned gathering hair and fiber. And so was that a precautionary inclusion of that to say that's what we need? Because sometimes certain people, whenever they create these probable cause affidavits, and that they'll throw everything in to the kitchen sink. They take everything and just throw it in there so that there's nothing missed. And then you'll see other search warrants, whereas they just put the bare minimum. And but I couldn't tell you. The evidence sheets and the CSI and the court discovery will disclose exactly what they have. Hello, Gail. Melissa. Does a shell casing have a serial number that traces it to a specific box of ammo, and a specific retailer can determine when it was purchased? The shell casing itself does not. Boxes of ammo that if you go buy a box of ammo, and generally somewhere's on that packaging or on the cardboard box, somewhere's in that container, there will generally be a lot number. And that lot number is specific to the manufacturer of that round on that specific lot. Because a run of ammo, they don't, they have a set number due to whatever demands are of, and they will reset, these manufacturers will, and the machines, every time they're set up, there can be a difference from lot to lot. That if you load 40 cal lot of ammo that has a lot number this year, the 40 caliber lot number that's loaded next year, and those numbers will be different, could have a lot of differences in the components, the primers, the weight of the gunpowder, the type of bullet, the weight of the bullet, anything and everything that makes up that completed unspent round can be measured and compared to other bullets that's from that same lot number. And is that something that they may be able to go in and look at, that the spent round that was recovered from the crime scene, that when they go and they analyze and they deconstruct that bullet and they look at that powder, is that powder, because powder is also continuously manufactured, and there's going to be some chemical differences in any and every part of that bullet. And if it's identical or whatever it is for it to expert to look at and analyze and give an opinion, that's going to be huge. And so if they took the bullet from the crime scene and for some reason it matches a lot number that Richard Allen has from the same time period, 5.5 years later, that's going to be huge. And Gil Hurt gifted another one True Crime Web membership. Thank you. Alyssa, question: before a gun is first purchased, are tests fired and cycling conducted? Sometimes they are. When you have match grade ammo or some of that, or you get a match grade gun, some companies will do it, but not as far as with pistols. Now, if a pistol is recovered during a crime or is found and it's submitted to, now I can tell you what Georgia does. If you have an unknown gun or a gun that's been recovered off a criminal, that when you submit it to the GBI, Georgia Bureau of Investigations, they will test fire it and compare it to other bullets. And so there are databases by some states that when a gun is submitted, that they will test fire and see and keep that. And as far as law enforcement, I believe that is pretty standard now. That when I think Glock did it. I don't know if they still do it, but there was a time that when we ordered our guns, it came with a spent casing that was functioned through that firearm. I don't know, but that was sent with it, but it was not kept by the manufacturer that I know of. And that's a fair point. It's going to be hard to convince the jury, and it should be hard. It should not be easy. And that's the things that the experts have to be qualified and show that for the fact that it should be hard to convict anyone of a crime. It should never be easy. And for the fact that we have to make sure that that threshold is and those goalposts are set at such a standard that it meets all the more than just probable cause, that it meets the standard of the courts for someone to be found guilty. I don't have a problem with it. Kelt says, yep, chemical composition of the ground would likely change the aging of the bullet. You think? Absolutely. Like I said, my test site's in Georgia, and you can clearly see that, yes, the aging progress just from the leaves, not even with the ground, just from the leaves is quite substantial. And then when you get to the berry part, once again, from 1 day to 10 days to 26 days, absolutely there's a difference in those casings. It's a cycling of the unspent round. It's a cycling of the um, guns, semi-automatics. There's two ways to cycle that weapon. Either manually cycle it with your hands, or you pull the trigger and the gun goes bang. And if it goes bang, then of course that also causes the gun to cycle. And so there, in this case, an unspent round, it was something that had to occur with manual manipulation of the hands, not pulling of the trigger, and creating the ejection of an unspent round. I believe so. If you look at my testing, even on this, although it's not at the level, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an expert in that. I've seen millions of casings. I've submitted a lot of casings to the crime lab, but I'm not an expert in that field. But I think that more than likely there's studies out there about it. I just don't know them. I don't, like I said, I'm not an expert in that line. But when the question was posed to me, I wanted to see just through a simple test. And as you can see, yes, there are results there. Would that be the same, identical as in Delphi? I doubt it, but it should be close, I would imagine. But we know, before I get away from it, that there is a substantial difference between 24 hours and 10 days. You can see in this picture. And you can also see it just laying in the leaves, that you can tell there's a lot of difference, because these three shells are one casing has never been introduced into the elements. The next one had been out there for 24 hours, 26 hours. The 10-day one on the you can see it's starting to have a reaction. So somewhere between 24, 26 hours and 10 days, there's a reaction. I just didn't have the enough casings to cover that expense and everything to do it. But then when you get to 26 days, you can see it continues as it escalates. Gail, One True Crime Web membership. Thank you. Hello, Drunk Turkey Show. Hope everyone's having an awesome weekend. We are. And I'm going to be on his show Wednesday night. So go check him out. Regardless, check him out before then. I don't know. There's certain chemicals in the leaves that give them, and it's in my last show. I think was it chlorophyll and some type of I can't remember what the other name was that gives it the colors. One's green, one's yellow, but whatever those are. They most certainly have a chemical reaction with the shell casing. I don't know. It could be anything. That I'm from Georgia. I could butcher any word. Oh man, you just have to bear with me. Yes, but my equipment isn't at the level of what the labs have, and so microscopically, I wouldn't be able to tell you what's. Well, I may see some general markings, and I have, as you can go and look at. I did some testing on it, whereas for ejections and the ejector and extractor, so that you could see those markings. But going inside those markings, just the scratching of the surface is one thing, but there's markings within that very basic, general, overall scratching that when you have the right equipment, you can go in there even far greater magnifications and see individualized characteristics. And is that what the experts will bring to the table? Absolutely. See through true crime web. Do you believe this case could be as simple as lone wolf, crime of opportunity, or does Carter say how complex it is lead you to believe otherwise? Um, Yes, it can be as simple as a lone wolf targeting crime of opportunity, but he did target at some point. Doesn't matter if he targeted them 1 minute before the attack, or it doesn't matter if he targeted them 1 day prior. There was some targeting that occurred. We just don't know what level. And is that part of the complex um, uh, of the other things that the tentacles and everything that Carter alluded to during his uh, news briefings. But yes, it could be as simple as lone wolf. And I will always state that if the crime scene itself is where everything occurred, where the bodies were found, we have a abduction site, but they got to the crime scene some way. They got there under their own power as far as the victims. It could be a lone wolf. If they got there by being carried or something to that location, then I don't believe it would be lone wolf. Because, like I said, as I did the testing with Mrs. Steve, it's not easy moving a person uh, uh, through the woods and going up an embankment within that time frame, especially. Thank you, Olivia. Susan says, "Do you remember hearing they dug up RA's pet to see if it matched pet?" I've heard that. I don't know if it's true, but I'm sure there's a report. If we see it in a report or something, then we know for a fact. There is, like I said, I have that, and I will. For my members, I'll pull that if I can find. Yeah, I'll pull the extractor marks for my members meeting, and then also in a future show, I'll have that for you. What kind of tests would the crime lab that is handling this case perform on bullet? They could do everything from, like I said, the extractor markings, ejector markings, to whatever types of, from the face of the, where the, there's even the possibility that it was a misfire. And so they may be able to do some analysis of the primer. Was there a misfire or a light tap on the primer itself? There's a lot of different things, from the bolt face to metal of the ramp, that could create some type of marking on that soft metal, that brass. And so they would perform that. They can perform touch DNA. They can look for fingerprints. There's so much that can be done to a piece of evidence. And there's a process that they would have went through to do that, for the fact that in semi-automatic pistols, to load that round into a magazine, you have to contact it at some point, either taking it out of the box, touching it with your thumb, your finger, ever how you load that magazine, even with a loader. They make some excellent loaders out there for some of the magazines. And so, but you still have to touch that bullet from the box at some point. And would they have tried that? I expect so, but we'll find out what the full analysis was at some point. Thank you, Jennifer. I'm looking forward to being on this show with the turkeys. Sarah Tequila, it's going to have to reline. Alley Cat, how you doing? Marion Tate. Witchcraft. How's little Steve doing? I have Steve, Mrs. Steve. We got baby Steve. We got double alt and triple alt. Triple alt is the smallest, newest addition to the Steve family. My grandson, and Mrs. Steve will have him tomorrow, and I look forward to getting some pictures. Can any elements like water or soil seep into the casing between the casing and the bullet? If it's exposed long enough, I expect so. But sometimes, there are compression fittings, even for our plumbing, that can be absolutely watertight. It depends on how, when that bullet is seated, and how much crimp is placed on that shell casing to put it into that copper jacket, or even lead. We don't know what type of bullet was in that round, that unspent round. Was it just a lead bullet, or is it a jacketed bullet? We don't know. But there are certain times, and even fully submerged, some bullets could be watertight for quite a while. I think there's some tests out there online that you can look up and see how long some people have tested that. Let's see here. Addison Stevens. Yes, I had a cat. I believe it was ejected. Zelda, good to see you. Senior B. Yaya Kelly. Question, Steve. I know nothing about guns. Are 40 cal round jackets normally and most often made of brass? The casing itself can be, these are the four typical types of casing. This is the part that holds the bullet, and this is the casing that gets ejected. The casing part of it is what gets ejected. It holds the primer and the powder, and the bullet is seated in to it. But this casing is generally made either nickel, brass, aluminum, or steel. Those are typically the different types of casing. The projectile that goes down range is the bullet itself. It can be just lead, it can be jacketed, and there's a lot of different types of jackets out there and different alloys. So there's a lot to a bullet. But the bullet itself can just be copper jacketed to they make all different types of alloys now and bullets to do and perform certain ways. Drunk Turkey says, have you tested how long touch DNA could have lasted on one of those rounds? Um, there's certain studies about metals having reactions with DNA. Actually, I think I may have even sent you the one of the articles on that. But no, for me to test it, I would have to submit one. If I have a active case on one of the code cases, if I ever have that, then of course, when I speak to a specific lab about that, I will ask that specifically. But just for general testing for content, no, I haven't. And for any of you see this touch DNA came along, and DNA was only getting into the court systems early on in the when I was in CSI. So we were watching that transition of DNA being introduced and allowed into the courts, and where it has come now. And but certain metals can have an effect. Could there be placed like that as red herring so the true offender is not in police sights? Staging is there to misdirect for a certain reason. Can it be the staging occurred to direct them towards a particular person? Absolutely. And it's always to direct them away from the offender. The offenders don't put anything in there. Now, they may have signatures and things that say, yes, I'm the one responsible, but they don't stage it to point to their identity as far as who they are in society, as far as their identities. But they will, to lay claim to certain things, stage certain parts of a crime scene. Lily Polly, good to see you. Oh, see what's happening here. We have Joanne Lynn as a new member. Thank you. Appreciate your support. And get caught up here, guys. True crime. Where will you be next week? I'm going up through the Midwest. I got several states I'll be going through, starting off my year, working with some families. But whenever we get more information, I'll be able to let you know. Some of the information when we work these cases, we are out there, and there are active offenders on some of these code cases. And really, for that reason, not so much for myself, but for some of the other team members that accompany me, I try to protect them as much as possible. And so not always do I get to say exactly what state I'm going to be in and what time period. But when I am able to, I will absolutely let y'all know. Kel, True Crime Well, could the defense get an expert to say that comparing the markings 6 years later isn't an accurate comparison. There's no telling what the defense would get because there's experts out there that will just about sell their soul for anything on both sides. You got to be extremely careful. And they, you know, these experts have a history of what their courts are. You have to go in there, and the defense or the prosecution is going to know who the other experts are, and they're going to have their history. And but and so that will be fascinating to see where that leads to. Hello, Marissa. Yes, I don't know if he's left or right-handed, but yeah, it depends what was happening in that video. If he does present, and is that part of no, these bullets are just from my own private stash. I have nothing to do with the processing of the crime scene. Everything that I present is from reading and research of the case, determining, looking at what evidence possibly may be at a crime scene, and trying to give my community and the web sleuths out there some basis of understanding of the potential value of the evidence. This is often the case. If it goes bang, it's not a good sign. How realistic that the unspent round could be planted? ISP, FBI were there watching and investigating. They would have to know BG was actually carrying a 40 caliber gun, and then that RA owned one. Exactly. And for the fact that that's the importance of that, regardless of when this bullet came in, was Richard Allen on the radar. Now, if you say that, oh, the bullet came in 5.5 years later, then that might be a different thing. But if you're saying that this bullet was found at the crime scene day 1, day 5, day 10, even day 30, when no one had heard of or suspected Richard Allen as being the one involved, then it's a huge point that you make here, Todd. Yes, even the one this you're correct, Love. Even the bullet that was just laying in the leaves is totally different than a fresh, unspent round from the box. To day 1, basically no difference. By day 10, you start to see yes, and by day 26, yes, hot mess is a good description. Thank you, Sarah. Brilliant pictures of the timeline. That's just like I said with the limited equipment that I have. Barbara Hall, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. If y'all don't know who Barbara Hall is, look up the Timmy Dees case. She is a mother that's been fighting for justice for a long time. Thank you, Kelp. Yes, Anna has sent me some pictures regarding um, that case out in Idaho. Thank you, Miranda. Yes, we just don't know. It could be anything. We just don't know if it was a failure to fire. It could be anything. I'm sure at the body farm and other controlled testing has that they've done some of this to see if it is possible. And even if they haven't found it at this point, I would still, regardless, if I found a bullet at a crime scene, I don't care if it's never been found that DNA existed, I would still submit it that, hey, during the processing, let's see if we can find some DNA because it only takes one time to make it worthwhile. Brenda, $10 super sticker. Thank you, Brenda. I expect that's the case. Yes, they would have had some type of image of the gun. I'm hoping that's true. The law enforcement state they were looking for a SIG before we even heard of Richard Allen, or did Ron Logan PCA just say gun? I don't know. I think there there were some other people that own certain types of firearms that were seized, and I don't know if it came up prior to or not from those guns that were seized, or during that image, that loop that Libby took of the video. Is there more to it? I think there probably is a firearm in their presentation of it, and they didn't allow us to see the presentation of that firearm. And but I think that was all part of the strategy. Gail, $20 super sticker, Canadian. Thank you. No, you can't tell the manufacturer type of firearm by the caliber of bullet. Now, if there's a unique gun out there, it has certain unique extractors or ejectors or a ramp or some type of distinguishing mark from a certain manufacturer, you might be able to tell, but I don't know what that would be. That's for the experts. Yes, you're correct. Just the caliber. Deborah said, I never heard of the aluminum. I thought that would be too soft. The aluminum one is, like I say, it's just the casing. It's inside a chamber. And of course, you don't reload aluminum because it is extremely soft metal. And often on the initial firing of aluminum, if you look at it when the bullet leaves and the pressure is there at the of where the crimp is, that you'll often see that the aluminum casing cracks on the first firing. And so, of course, you don't reload aluminum. Um, could you? I wouldn't recommend it. How many bullets would I have to test to make it a scientific study in the Delphi woods? I don't know. That would, like I said, uh, you would have to have a controls. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, what the standards are for it to be certified. That would be in the world of unearthed secrets in them, and they would know as far as that of running those controls to identify and how many times does it have to be repeated before it becomes an absolute stated fact of opinion by expert. So I wouldn't know how many bullets it would take, but I would expect more than three and probably less than 20. Yes, Anna is correct. The neck of of the casing is pressed tight against the bullet. Absolutely. See-throughs, true crime web. Do the crime scene photos you saw look like typical crime scene photographs you have seen in your career, or were they taken by an amateur? Well, there's a lot of photographs taken of any crime scene. Could these photographs be along one stage of that? Absolutely. One of them is of the image I saw was extremely good quality. The other one, the lighting on it was different. And the people that saw them, have we all seen the same images? I don't know. I don't know if we're all talking about the same ones, but of the images I saw, it's one of them was of well focused, had a lot of detail, and had that I would consider above average crime scene photo. The other one, not so much, but that could be due to low lighting also. DP, how did you get interested and involved in the Delphi case? I'm not really involved in it. Originally, Randy Gravitt. If y'all don't know who Randy is, he has a YouTube channel, and I was watching him and came across him, and he was talking, I think it was on Marv show at that time, and they were discussing, and through Randy is the one that originally brought me, and then from that, it's just brought me to this. It's amazing how when you contact someone and you want to become a ambassador for law enforcement of where it's taken us to this day for the True Crime Web, the foundation, and helping these families. I'm appreciative of all of this. Oh yeah. Anytime I'm in the area, whenever I'm traveling, sometimes I let people know exactly where we're going to be, but if I'm in the area, absolutely send me an email. Who will you be looking for next week? Like I said, there's one of these cases I'm working on is still hasn't been made public, but that will be changing probably in the next month, and I'll let you know more about that case. Do you think it's unusual an unspent round was found at the scene? Absolutely, unbelievable, and that's huge. That is huge. All right. Oh, what's going on in chat, guys? I'm just trying to get caught up here going through this. Nightbot is jumping in. Did anyone else take pictures of the crime scenes beside Ellie? there's possibility, of course, searchers may have who that's just so, just like Libby had the forethought to take pictures of Bridge Guy, that with the technologies that existed at the time, where some of the searchers had their phones with them, absolutely. Could they have taken pictures? Sure. Um, with the law enforcement, crime scenes, they could be different crime scenes out there. You can have even district attorneys have investigators. You have coroners that come and they can take pictures. And so there's a large, uh, there's a lot of possibilities for different agencies to be able to take pictures at a crime scene, videos, 3D imaging. So they could be quite extensive um, as far as number of images taken. Yes, if y'all would hit that like button, guys, appreciate it. Thank you, Gail. Appreciate that. I'm getting caught up. Uh, for those of us, Black Swan says, who don't know much about guns, why is it hugely unusual for an unspent round to be found at the scene? For an unspent round to be found at the scene means that something occurred, something extra. For the fact that normally that we have a crime that's committed, and we have within probable cause affidavit that the homicides occurred with a certain type of weapon, such as a sharp edge knife or instrument. And then we have, if we don't have victims that have gunshot wounds, but only sharp edge injuries, then how did that unspent round get there? What did it fall out of a pocket? Um, did it that if it fell out of pocket, it means that that round was racked somewhere else, some other time, and it just by reaching in his pocket, pulling out a knife, or during a struggle, or that the bullet fell out of one of his pockets or something. Is that possible? Absolutely. Is it possible that that round was um, cycled through that very day? That's more than likely. That's the simplest explanation. That somewhere during the struggle or through the moment of trying to intimidate the victims, that the offender racked that gun and ejected that round. That makes the most sense, but there's a lot of different ways that round could have got there. Mother of Dragons. Um, 399 super sticker. Thank you. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate your support. I have no idea. And like I said, I don't even know if the pictures, how accurate they are, because they've been photoshopped. Absolutely. And were one of them just redacted? Absolutely. So there's a lot of things, and I have no idea. See through. True Crime Web. They mentioned the distance that the bullet was found from the bodies. Could they have named that distance if the bullet was found after the bodies were removed from scene? Sure. Everything that you do at a crime scene, from the sketches, your charts, your measurements, the pictures, they're all that if you have to, just like I go with my mannequins, that you should be able to go back to that crime scene and recreate it. You can put evidence back in almost the exact position or location, orientation, that um, whatever their body positions are, that you can, through the measurements that you made and everything that you collected, especially now that they have 3D imaging and you have this cloud points of, of data that you can go in there and you can walk through it, that yes, um, that they would be able to position that bullet relatively easily. Black Swan says, I'm from Australia, not many guns here. We have our share of them here. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate everybody being here. Let me get into the start and make sure as I go through this that everybody gets their blue lights. Thank you, Paula Lee. Thank you, CJK, for your membership. Thank you, Southern Gal. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Gail Hurd, for your donation. Gail Hurd for her 5 memberships. Lee and Susan Trainer for their membership. Gail Hurd once again getting those memberships. And once again, my goodness, you were busy tonight. Absolutely unbelievable. We appreciate that so much. And then Joanne Lynn for being a member. Thank you. Then we have Brenda, $10 super sticker. Thank you. And then we have Gail for $20 Canadian super sticker. And then Mother of Dragons, $3.99. We thank all of y'all for everything that you do for this channel. Give it a thumbs up, share, subscribe, promote it any way you can. That we need to be as best informed about everything that we can understand about this crime, and so that we can have justice for Libby and Abby. And so if you have any information, make sure they get that. But I will see our members tomorrow at somewhere around 7. And but y'all stay safe out there, and we'll see you soon, guys. Bye-bye.